In this video, we'll be talking about one of the most important parts of videography, which is composition. There are a few rules of composition that you will want to follow almost always. And with anything, there are exceptions to every rule, but in order to make those exceptions, you have to know what the rules are. So let's get into it. Composition basically means how pleasing an image looks to the eye. Here's a few examples of good composition. As you can see here, each of these images look pleasing to the eye and makes you just feel warm inside. And here are a few examples of bad composition. These images may make you feel a bit uncomfortable, and we're going to talk about why. The first rule of composition that we're going to talk about is the rule of thirds, and this is the rule that I most commonly see beginner filmmakers break. The rule of thirds says that your subject should be framed in one of the thirds depending on which direction they're facing, and their eyes should be on the top third. This makes the image look the most pleasing. So when your subject is looking straight ahead at the camera, they should be in the center of the frame. If they're facing to the right, then you should put them on the left third and give them more space in front of them. And if they're facing to the left, you should put them on the right third. Not doing this will result in awkward framing, which makes you feel uncomfortable as a viewer because it doesn't give them room to breathe, and we don't like that. So with this rule, remember to keep their eyes on the top third and avoid giving them too much headroom, and make sure to always give them enough room in front of them, whichever direction they're facing. One of the biggest mistakes that I see beginner filmmakers make is giving their subject too much headroom and not framing them correctly by following the rule of thirds. The second rule we're going to talk about is filling the frame. The difference between these two images is that one of them is filling the frame and the other one has a bunch of dead space everywhere, which doesn't make it look very good. You want to fill the frame with your subject, whether that is a person, a building, or a product. Get rid of all the dead space around it and make sure that your dominant subject is filling the frame and everything else that doesn't have to do with it is out of the frame, because having good composition is more than just what's in your frame, it's also what's not in your frame. You want to get rid of anything that distracts from your subject, and when possible, shoot at a low aperture so that if there is something that you can't get out of the frame, it's at least blurred out so that your attention is focused on your subject. The third rule we're going to talk about is being symmetric. This means that any and all lines that you see in your frame should be symmetrical. Look for leading lines that would help bring the focus of the viewer to the subject, and make sure that your horizons are level, and that if you have something filling one side of the frame, there's something on the other side of the frame to balance it out. The fourth rule of composition is to create depth. This can be done by first shooting at a low aperture, and then also having foreground in front of your subject and background behind your subject. In any filming situation, you can always look around and see what could add depth to your image. Like, for example, these shots reveal the subject from behind a tree or a pillar, and this shot has light bulbs as the foreground. You also want to choose an aesthetically pleasing background like a mountain, a building, or something that fills the space behind them, because it's always more pleasing to see a beautiful background behind your subject than nothing at all. And another important way to create depth is to create distance between your subject and the background. A big mistake that I see beginner filmmakers make is having their subject film right up against a wall. This makes your image look flat, so get your subject away from the wall to create depth, and that will end up making your image look a lot better. But that's it for this video. Make sure that you practice with each one of these to the point where they will just come naturally. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.